You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. You're listening to another podcast of All Things Sports with Mike Davis. Thanks for joining me here on this early May. May 2nd? May 2nd. Podcast number 18. So, yeah. Thanks for joining me. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, I thank you for spending your time with me. If you're listening to the restream of this podcast on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like and comment on the podcast. New podcasts will typically air every Wednesday and Saturday, so please feel free to share the podcast on any of your social media outlets that you use. I won't take up much more of your time. Let's get into it. So, you all know how this thing goes. I like to start my show off talking about Atlanta happenings, be it sports or anything going on around the city. As you know, when you tune in the, your typical sports stations like your ESPNs or your Fox Sports, they only like to talk about the certain big market cities. So, I like to put my city out there, give them some recognition or, you know what I mean. But first things first, all things Atlanta. So, we all know because of the COVID-19 situation that sports has pretty much been on a hiatus. Just really like news and tidbit things going on. And yesterday, the Falcons got into the trade business with the Miami Dolphins. They trade for edge rusher Charles Harris. So the Falcons make the trade with Miami, trading a 7th round draft pick for Charles Harris. Now, Harris is a 2017 first round draft pick out of Missouri. He only totaled 3.5 sacks over the last 41 games he's played in. 41 of those games were 8 starts. It's not great. It's not great, but it is what it is. But the Dolphins, they attempted to move Harris to a 3-4 outside linebacker role last season after he struggled in a 4-3 defensive end setting, and he only registered just half a sack in 14 games, 5 starts last season. To me, this is just a body. I don't expect anything to come of this. Excuse me. But this is just a body. I'm not sure what Atlanta is really trying to do with that line. The only guy that's proven himself really on that line is Grady Jarrett for the Falcons. Outside of that, the line doesn't look so hot. I mean, you got Takk McKinley, and he's more of a hybrid. He'll play a little bit in, a little bit of outside linebacker, kind of like what Harris is. I don't know what kind of defense they're trying to run, what Dan Quinn is doing, but I'm not that sold on it. The Falcons spent their first round pick this year on a cornerback from Clemson. So, they're trying to shore some things up. I just don't see. You go get a guy like Charles Harris, who really has proven nothing in his short time in the NFL. But, I could be wrong. Maybe he just needs a change of scenery. I could be wrong. You know, you never know. So anyway, I'm gonna keep that part short as far as all things Atlanta goes. Not much else really going on into the city except we're all in the news for opening back up after the well, I won't even say after because the COVID-19 pandemic is still out there. So, but we're one of the first cities to kind of open this thing back up, and I believe everyone is watching. All eyes on us to see what happens, but that's all things Atlanta people. So I want to get into well, before I go into the NBA side and talk about my last dance review, I did see episodes 3 and 4 this week. I didn't see when it originally aired, but I wanted to keep it NFL here for a second. So the big news this week in the NFL was the Bengals. They cut longtime quarterback Andy Dalton. Excuse me. So Andy Dalton, he had been the Bengals' primary starter pretty much since they selected him in the second round of the 2011 NFL draft. Now, Andy Dalton is 32, led the Bengals to the playoffs 5 times, and the Bengals lost in a wild card. Well, they lost each time in the wild card that Dalton was the quarterback, and he is also the franchise's career leader in touchdown passes. Now, in 9 years, Dalton was 70, 61, and 2 as a starter. I had no idea he had 2 ties. That is something. That is something. I would love to know which quarterback has the most ties in the NFL. I've never thought of that. So he has 2 ties on his resume. So yeah, Dalton was 70, 61, and 2 as a starter. And he led the Bengals to the postseason from 2011 to 2015. Was a 3-time Pro Bowl selection. And along with that, his franchise record, 204 touchdown passes. He is second in passing yards, 31,000, a little 31,500. He trails only Ken Anderson, who was at 32,800. 32,838 passing yards. So Andy Dalton is second amongst the passing yards in the Bengals franchise history. Now, Cincinnati, they didn't win a playoff game during Dalton's tenure. Remember, that was a big knock on Marvin Harrison. Marvin Lewis. Forgive me. You know how it is on Saturday. But we know that was a knock on Marvin Lewis not winning a playoff game. And, though Dalton was a part of that, he didn't win a playoff game during his tenure in Cincinnati, continuing a drought that stretches back to January of 1991. And it is the longest in the NFL. So Cincinnati is going all out. They drafted Joe Burrow, number 1 pick overall. And it looks like they're going to roll with him. They're riding with him. And whatever happens, happens. Now, typically when that happens, I'm not mad at it because you don't get better sitting on the bench. Now, there are some guys who do need to sit on the bench. I thought that was the case with Baker Mayfield. I thought Tyrod Taylor should have started. Now, he did, but I keep forgetting the guys, the coach's name in Cleveland that was let go that does not get along with Baker Mayfield, who ultimately made that decision to play Tyrod and let Baker sit for a while. Now, I totally understand you let some guys sit, but at the same time, I understand that you don't get better sitting. Now, some players are ready. Joe Burrow, I don't really know. I didn't really follow LSU. I just know LSU was on an ass-whooping tour this year. So there was really no need to follow. There's really no need to follow intensely what they were doing. It was just next team up with LSU last season, and Joe Burrow was showing, what he was about, his capabilities, and I have no problem with the move with Cincinnati. You would love for a quarterback to sit back a year and kind of soak in the information and the playbook. But, Joe Burrow, from just the eye test, he looks like he's ready to take over and be groomed into a starting NFL quarterback. And apparently, Cincinnati, that's what they think. And they are cutting, well, not they are, they have cut longtime quarterback Andy Dalton. So where does this leave Andy Dalton? Does he go to the teams that need a QB like New England, San Diego? Not San Diego. To me, they'll always be the San Diego Chargers. I don't care. They never should have left San Diego. They're not the LA Chargers. Now, I did see that new building, the scoreboard they're putting up in that building they're moving into. I can't wait to visit some of these new NFL stadiums. But that's neither here nor there. The Chargers, they're looking for a QB. I believe they drafted a QB. They got Tyrod Taylor there as a backup, who I just mentioned. But I think New England could use him. But the market for some reason this offseason, the market is not strong for quarterbacks for real. Well, it's not strong for older, established veteran QBs, I should say. I mean, we saw what happened with Teddy Bridgewater. He went undefeated last year with New Orleans, when he started. I don't count that loss that he took against the Rams. He wasn't the starter in that game. And I kind of think the Saints were shell-shocked in that game, because Bridgewater was hitting guys right on the number. And they were just dropping passes. So I don't count that one. In my opinion, Bridgewater went undefeated in the games he started. And he got snatched up by Carolina. Brady went to Tampa. And that's pretty much been it. As far as real established names, quarterback names. Winston, it took him a while to find a job. Now he signed with New Orleans, but I think that's just out of vengeance. He wants to get back at Tampa. I thought he should have went to Pittsburgh. You got Cam still out there, and now you have Andy Dalton out there now. So where does this leave Andy? Where does he go? If I'm Belichick, I would kick the tires on Andy Dalton. Just to bring in a veteran guy who's been there, he's done it before. He's been in the postseason. I would bring him in, and what's the worst that could happen? You get a guy who's established. He knows how to play the position in the NFL. I bring him in. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Andy Dalton. He's had a pretty decent career. He's flown on the radar being in San Diego. It's one of those San Diego, in Cincinnati. But he was in one of those places where guys just people didn't pay attention to San Diego. But in other NFL news, Clay Matthews. Now him and Todd Gurley, they have beef. They have beef with the Los Angeles Rams. Now Clay Matthews files a grievance against the Rams a little over a month after being released by the team. Linebacker Clay Matthews has filed a grievance against the Los Angeles Rams. Matthews is claiming the team owes him $2 million in unpaid guarantees. Now, the move comes weeks after Matthews and running back Todd Gurley, who was also released by the team, voiced their displeasures with the Rams. Gurley tweeted at the Rams' Twitter account, "Past due. Send me my money ASAP." Now, Matthews quote tweeted it, saying, "You and me both, TG." Now, Matthews spent one season with the Rams, starting 13 games with 37 tackles and 8 sacks. After Matthews and Gurley sent their tweets, Rams general manager Les Snead later responded to their criticism, stating that the players would eventually receive the money owed to them. Now, he went on to say that they're definitely owed money. The money is guaranteed, and we are going to pay them, Snead told the NFL Network. Now, there's some language in the contract of exactly when you pay them, and that's what we're adhering by. What I do know is both Clay and Todd earn that money, and they are going to get that money. My thoughts on this: pay them their money. Pay them their money. Why drag it out? Give them their money. You know, I mean, if they earned it, they earned it. Give them their money. It's not your money. You know, regular jobs do this too. Not just in the NFL. I've seen this happen at just your regular job. And I mean it goes from your top regular jobs down to your bottom paying regular jobs. You know. You can even go I've seen it even in fast food where they will try and hold on to your money. You know, and these guys in these executive positions, you know, it's not your money. Just pay the people. You know, just pay them. It kind of it's the equivalent of when you go to McDonald's and let's say you get a 20-piece chicken nugget. They give you one barbecue packet, and you're like, I got a 20-piece chicken nugget. What is one packet going to do? And then they want you to pay extra for a product you just bought that requires more than one packet. And they'll tell you, well, you know, well, that comes out of the companies. But look, it's not your money. Just give me what's owed to me. Okay? This is owed to me now. I paid for this. It's owed to me. And the way that Gurley and Matthews paid for it, they paid for it with their bodies on the line on that football field. They're owed money. Pay it to them. That's all I got to say. This is why I wish guys the NFL had went on strike. Because these executives and these owners, they do what they want to do. They get mad at players for standing up for their rights and standing up to be paid. And then on the flip side, they tell you, well, hey, it's just a business. Well, if it's just a business, pay these two guys. You even said they earned the money. Matthews owed $2 million. Pay him. Mm. Oh, wow. All right. So we know the NFL draft just happened, and Green Bay took a QB in the first round. And I've been reading that with Matt LaFleur, that's pretty much a power move, telling Aaron Rodgers, look, you can be gone at any given time. So now it's come out that Brett Favre thinks that Aaron Rodgers will leave. So he went on to say that Tom Brady, himself, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning all finished their careers elsewhere. You're going to see that more and more, and I think Aaron will finish somewhere else. Now, remember, Favre was upset back in 2005 when the team selected Aaron Rodgers, and it boiled over 3 years later when Favre retired, and then he wanted to return, only to be told that the Packers are planning to move forward with Rodgers at the helm. Now, he believes Rodgers will begin to feel much like he did back then. And I have to agree. Aaron Rodgers is kind of a low-key Kevin Durant. And when I say that, he's a guy who has all this talent. He has the arm. He's a great quarterback. He has a great mind on that football field. But at the same time, he has these little quirks about him, these nuances that just kind of, dig at you. There's always something going on with him. Whether that's is with team personnel or off the field. Now, he has his situation, with his family off the field. I'm not going to get into that. That's some personal stuff. You can go read about that if you want to. But that's has leaked into the media, and he doesn't get along with his head coaches. He didn't get along with Mike McCarthy, and now it's a power struggle with him and LaFleur. And he thought that they were going to get him some help in the first round, and Green Bay took another QB. So one thing about Green Bay, they know how to end a quarterback's career there. Okay, they did it with Brett. They told Brett, "We'll see you later. Have a good life." And I think that is going to be the same thing that happens with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers might be on his way out. And sometimes, at the end of the day, you just get tired of it. I think Green Bay got tired of Brett Favre's act. I want to retire. I don't want to retire. I vividly remember when that whole thing went down. And they might just be tired of the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. We just might be there. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So, nothing but the future to look forward and see what happens. That we'll see if Rodgers is a Green Bay Packer after this upcoming season. He'll play this year there. I'm pretty sure of it. He'll play this year there, but we'll see what happens going forward. So, listen, guys, I'm going to take a break here, and I will catch you on the other side of it. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. All right, guys, welcome back. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. I wanted to move over to the NBA side of things on this segment. So it is coming out that the NBA is expected to move the NBA draft. So teams around the NBA are reportedly hopeful the league office will move the 2020 NBA draft back from June 25th to at least August. Now, the NBA pre-draft process has been severely altered this year due to the coronavirus pandemic, and it has prevented teams from properly scouting draft-eligible prospects. As a result, teams would like more time to prepare and scout players. Now, teams are currently prohibited from working out prospects and viewing live video from prospects, and were only recently approved to hold virtual meetings with players. Now, I don't have a problem with them moving the draft back. I'm starting to feel a certain way about the NBA season returning. I'm starting to feel, leaning toward they might need to cancel the season. That's just me. I won't go into it, but that's just me. But I have no problem with them pushing the draft back because I can honestly tell you, and one of my boys told me this too. He said he has no idea who the prospects are coming out. He said he didn't get a chance to see college basketball this season. College basketball was cut short. And you have to remember, guys, they come out after 1 year now. Guys aren't staying, 2, 3, 4 years in college. You might know like 5 names that's coming out that's coming into the draft. One being one of the top prospects is the Ball brothers, the youngest Ball brother. He's coming out. The kid from Memphis, the big man. I think his name was James Wise or James Wiseman, something like that. He was atop the crew for Penny Hardaway's Memphis Tigers. He's coming out to the draft. It's only like 5 names that you can actually say that you know. So I have no problem with scouts, with teams wanting to push this thing back so they can get scouts out there to see, what guy would fit perfectly into their setting, into their team. Not an issue with me. So we'll see what happens with the NBA draft, and we'll see if they actually move it back to August. So also in NBA news now, if the season does return, they're talking about that they could play at Walt Disney, the Disney resorts down in Florida. So the NBA, they're in talks with the resorts about resuming play there. Now, the venue makes a ton of sense for the NBA because the resort has several on-site basketball courts, including a few that are already equipped for television broadcast. Now, the Disney property also has enough hotel rooms and clearly enough entertainment to, quarantining players comfortably and staffers while the league self-isolates during its resumption of play. That's another situation I have no problem with. Now, the NBA does come back, great. If it doesn't come back soon, I think they need to cancel it. But I'm not going to go into that argument. But if they're talking about the NBA coming back soon, and when I say soon, I mean this month in May. If it comes back in the month of May, I have no problem with the league, moving down to Florida and playing at Disney. Not an issue at all. I would look forward to it. It's one of those things where, because it doesn't happen all the time, I would love to see what happens there, and whatnot. And we're going to get a test run as well as to what sports would look like if it returns this month and there are no fans, because NASCAR will be starting their engine on May 17th. Now, NASCAR is starting back up with the Cup race. Now, over a 10-day period, they plan to run 7 races at tracks in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Darlington, South Carolina. There won't be any fans, but the races will be broadcast on Fox and FS1. So the NBA can look at this and see what NASCAR does and kind of take some tips and advice on how to bring the NBA back. Do they plan to do it with fans? No fans? Or are they going to move that thing down to Florida and restart the NBA season? So NASCAR, all eyes are on you. Everyone's going to be watching this race on May 17th to see how NASCAR handles it. Kind of like how all the other states are watching Georgia. See how Georgia handles it. So all eyes are on NASCAR. I, for one, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't watched live sports and I don't know how long. I'm with everybody else. I probably will watch the race. I'm going to watch some. I'm not going to watch all of it. I'm not going to watch. I'm not a big NASCAR guy. I'm not a NASCAR guy by any stretch of the imagination. And I'll sit there. I'll watch, a couple laps when I'm just flipping the channels on TV, but now if it was NASCAR on PlayStation or something like that, on the Xbox, is there a NASCAR game on Xbox? I haven't played NASCAR. I've only played it on PlayStation, but I do love any type of racing game to play it. The old Need for Speed. I haven't played the new Need for Speed in a long time. I know I'm getting off topic here, but Need for Speed. I'm trying to think of the last one I played. There was one that took place. The game took place in San Francisco. Not sure which one that was. I think there was one called Most Wanted. That could have been in. I could be wrong, but I don't know. But all eyes are going to be on NASCAR. You know what? Give NASCAR a round of applause. You never know. NASCAR might be bringing this thing together, this sports world together, and I hope that they get it right. So that leads into other sports, to be willing to come back and get this thing started. Because I was just looking for the NFL schedule. I knew the NFL had pushed the schedule release back to this month. I saw that it will release no later than the 9th. So the schedule should release next week, the NFL schedule. Normally it releases in April, but due to the coronavirus pandemic, that wasn't the case. But shout out to NASCAR. I hope they do well down in Charlotte. And they get this thing back rolling. So I want to give you a little tidbit news since we're on NBA talk, and I know I just talked a little NASCAR. So I want to wish the people good luck today. Why do you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. I'm glad you asked. The Air Jordan 5 Fire Red officially released today. So I reported in a previous podcast, it was about 2 Sundays ago, when the first Last Dance first 2 episodes aired. Nike had a surprise release, and they released a certain number of the Air Jordan 5s. Now, today is the day that they officially dropped. And me being a shoehead, I would love to have them, but unfortunately, you have some priorities that, take over. But I can't say one thing about the shoe game. During this pandemic, the shoe game is not slowed down at all. It is not slowed down. I mean, StockX is reporting profits throughout this whole situation. So people are still out there buying shoes and whatnot. But you know what? I want to give my high school story again. I think I told it already when I talked about the sneak release Nike did with the Air Jordan 5. But if I haven't, here it goes. All right, so the Air Jordan 5, this model that's coming out today, the Fire Reds, that was the first pair of Air Jordans I bought. I was 17. I was a junior in high school. And I remember going to work. Now, you got to remember, this was back when Jordans released on Tuesday. They didn't release on Saturday. Jordans released Tuesday mornings. Because I used to be, if you're in Atlanta, you remember Walters. You know Walters. Walters is still downtown. And Walters is one of those mom and pop shoe stores that gets all the exclusives that places like Foot Locker and Champs, they don't get those. So the Air Jordan 5 had released, and this was during it was a winter break. It was like Thanksgiving break or it was Christmas break. But I was out of school. I know that much because I worked my part-time job in the daytime. Now, my part-time job was Popeyes. I was working there as a teenager in high school, making a little money. Like most kids that age, you're just going to spend your money pretty much on nonsense, clothes, shoes, to hang out, and that's pretty much it, So I had to go to work that day. So I wasn't going to be able to get up and go and get the shoes and then make it back to work on time because I was working the day shift. Now, when Jordans released back then, they normally released at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I had to be at work at 9 a.m. to start prepping and all that for us to open at 10 o'clock. So there's no way I was going to make it back from Walters from getting the shoes and then make it back to my part-time job. So I'm upset because I want these shoes. Never had a pair of Jordans and I wanted these. And here I am working and I have the money to get the shoes. So while I'm at work, I'm on the phone in the back and I'm calling different stores to see who has the shoe. I'm like, hey, did you guys get the fives in? And, pretty much every store, yeah, we sold out. We're sold out. So close to when it was time for me to clock out around 5, I called one store. Well, I called a couple stores in the West End Mall. Now, the West End Mall was maybe 5 minutes up the road from me. But walking distance, it wasn't 5 minutes up the road. It'd take you 20 minutes. It would be like a 20-minute walk from where I worked. So I didn't want to wait on the city bus. So I ended up walking to the mall. I found a store that said it had the shoes. So I get off work. I start walking. I'm in my Popeyes uniform. I got chicken on me, chicken juice, because I was a cook. And, and I got all these raggedy shoes and, whatever. I'm on a mission. I'm 17 and I'm on a mission. So I go into one of the stores and I'm like, hey, you guys have the Jordans in a size 12. And they're like, nah, man, we just sold out and whatnot. Dog, man, I missed it. So I'm walking out, and there was this one particular shoe store in the mall I never would have gone to. Now, the thing with shoes back then, they didn't advertise Air Jordans. It was one of those things where you knew they had them, but they didn't have the Jordan like just sitting out on display. Now, I don't know if they do that today, but back then they did. So something said, go in this store and just see if they have the shoe. So I go in, I said, hey, do you have the Air Jordan 5s that came out today in a size 12? Guy says, I have it in a 12, but I was saving it for somebody, and he hasn't come in yet, and we're about to close. So he said, you know what? I'm going to sell it to you. And he goes in the back, and he gets, the silver and black box, the Jordan face on top of the box. They had switched from the Nike boxes they used back in the day with the swoosh on it. And he opens it up, lets me see it, and I see these beautiful Air Jordan 5s in the box, my size. I tell him, ring it up, let's go. And I go in, and we go, he rings me up, and I buy the shoe. And I am the happiest 17-year-old walking out of the West End Mall with my first pair of Jordans, the Air Jordan 5 Fire Reds. I wore those shoes until the wheels came off me. I love those shoes. I would love to get those shoes again. Shout out to my boy Theo. If he got a pair early, you can go over to his channel. I believe his channel is JT Souls. That's SOLES Souls, JT Souls. But shout out to him. He got the shoes earlier, and I saw his review on it, and it's pretty much the same shoe I got back in the day. But they were still putting Nike Air on the retro. They wasn't putting the Jumpman logo on the back, on the heel. So it still had the Nike Air on there. That just set the whole thing off, and I love those shoes. So, people out there, be careful getting the shoes. Be safe. When you're getting Jordans, you got to be safe out there, man. It's a dangerous world out there when it comes to expensive clothing, and that's no exception for the Air Jordans. Unfortunately, we have people that will do anything to get their hands on those shoes. So, as I just said, just be careful out there to the people getting the Air Jordan 5 Fire Reds today. So, while we're on the Air Jordan 5 Reds, let's go ahead and review the Last Dance that aired Sunday. So I saw episodes 3 and 4, and it was pretty much the Dennis Rodman and Detroit Pistons stories, which I assume. Now, I like the Dennis Rodman side of things. I'm kind of over the whole Detroit Pistons situation because I already knew about that, and I knew that when you hear the Pistons, how they talk about Jordan today, they do not like Michael Jordan. They don't respect Michael Jordan at all. But if you're Jordan, they respect you. They respect you. And they respect you by showing you that they had no way to stop you but knock you on your ass every time you got that basketball. They didn't know how to stop you. So in my eyes, that's respect. Now, I love that Jordan told Scotty and Horace, stop complaining, stop whining to the refs, not going to do anything. Just get up and play basketball. I love that mentality. I love it. That could have been from anybody, and I would have loved him. That's why Jordan is the man, in my opinion. Stop whining to the refs, play ball. They knock you down. Refs don't call it. It is what it is. Once you start whining and complaining, look, that other team, be it the Pistons or whoever, they know that they are in your heads and they have you. So I love that part. Now, the Pistons not shaking hands, do I think it was corny of them? Yes. Do I think it was corny of the Celtics to walk off the floor? Yes. And you can tell when, Isaiah Thomas was talking about how the Celtics kind of did it to them, and Kevin McHale kind of gave him a backhanded, half-hearted pound and whatnot, and you can see it. Kevin McHale wanted no parts of congratulating the Detroit Pistons, but and look, it was Bush League. It was weak. You know, look, if the other team can be man enough to shake your hand in defeat, be man enough to do the same thing when you get your behind whooped. It's called sportsmanship. At the end of the day, we all have kids and families to go to. We have lives to live. At the end of the day, I get it. It is just a game, and when you're in that game, you're in battle. You're battling. But at the end of and you don't have to be friends with these guys, but there's a certain level of respect that you should show your opponent. The Bulls sat there and got their behinds kicked every year to the Pistons, and they had no problems shaking their hands at the end of the series. And the Detroit Pistons could have done the same thing, and the Boston Celtics could have done the same thing. I don't care how much hate you have for each other. You can dislike each other. I don't care. But, and I'll even go this far. I don't so much have a problem with the Pistons walking off the floor. My issue was Isaiah Thomas being the leader of that team. Him being the leader. Okay? I'll even go ahead and put Bill Laimbeer in there. Because Bill Laimbeer was respected on those Pistons teams. His teammates respected him and what he had to say. You two men, you make sure you go ahead and you shake Michael Jordan's hand, you shake Scottie Pippen's hand, and you shake Phil Jackson's hand. You being the leaders of your team, you make sure you shake the leaders' hands of the other team at least. If you don't want to shake everybody's hand, I get it. In defeat, that's fine. But you make sure you seek out those captains of those other teams and you shake their hands in defeat. That was weak what they did, walking past the bench. Isaiah Thomas was weak, trying to duck his head down. Like you weren't going to see him walk past Michael Jordan and everybody else. That was weak. That was one of the weakest moves I've ever seen by a team. Weak. If you're going to stay there like a man with your chest out by knocking a man out of the air, then stand there with your chest out and be a man and shake someone else's hand. One of the things I love is if you ever see when the Bulls beat the Phoenix Suns in the NBA Finals, Charles Barkley congratulates Michael Jordan and he congratulates Scottie Pippen. Jordan told him, I don't know if you can find it somewhere on YouTube, I'm pretty sure of it. He tells Charles Barkley, keep your head held high. Walk out of here with your head held high when they're hugging each other after Barkley lost to him. I respect that. Don't be a coward and run off like the Pistons did. You might not beat me today, but I'll get you one day. Okay? And I'm going to show humility and decency. And the Pistons were not that. And I see why the Pistons are looked at one of the worst champions of all time. Now, they're one of the best teams of all time in NBA history. They are left out. I will agree with the Detroit Pistons. That Pistons team is left out of history. And I get it. But it was weak sauce, what they did. I don't respect it. Dennis Rodman being Dennis Rodman. I never had a problem with Dennis Rodman. I knew that growing up watching him, some of the players, they didn't like his antics. But Rodman never rubbed me the wrong way like some of these players do today. Rodman never rubbed me like that. You got to love a man that tells you he needs a vacation in the middle of the season. I love when they ask Michael, they ask him, they say, so did Rodman come back in 48 hours? Jordan doesn't say anything. He just shakes his head. No. Just no. Oh, wow. Wow. on that note, I'm going to take one more break. I'm going to come back, finish up the podcast. You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you on the other side of this break. All right, welcome back to All Things Sports with Mike Davis. We've reached the last segment of the show. So, I was watching one of my shows one day this week. You know, I told you I don't catch shows when they air. I normally catch it a day or two later. But one of my new shows, Dave, that airs on FX, I believe it's FXX. It's getting to the point now is where it's Dave versus Atlanta. If you didn't catch this week's episode of Dave, the rapper Lil Dicky, do yourself a favor and go and watch it. It is one of the best endings. It's one of the best season finales I've seen in a while. Now, I saw that Charlemagne from the Breakfast Club, he had tweeted out, the beginning is one of the most, of the episode is one of the most disturbing, pleasant things he's ever seen. And I have to agree. It was throwing me. just watch the episode, okay? But the way it ends, look, Lil Dicky spit. In the words of Dylon from Chappelle's show, he spit hot fire. Okay? The episode ends with him on the Breakfast Club and he spits hot fire. And I love, I guess this is going to be a spoiler alert. I should have said this earlier. But I love how when Lil Dicky gets to the end of the rap and Charlemagne says, "What's your name?" And then you have Lil Dicky, he looks up, he looks at the screen, at the camera, and then it cuts away to the title card and just says Dave. I love that. That is a genius way to end the show, because we all know, if you watch the show, it started off with he wanted people to know who he is. His name, Dave. And I loved the show. I thought the ending was genius. I love the end of the season finale. It's one of the best season finales I've seen in a long time. Most series finales and season finales suck. You know what? Horrible. But Lil Dicky hit the nail on the head. And for some reason, I've been watching finales the past couple of days. I just rewatched the Cheers. Rewatched Cheers on Netflix, the old sitcom, the 80s that went to the 90s with Sam Malone. Don't judge me. Don't say, why is there a black man watching Cheers? But but I just watched that one, and I watched that series again. I love Cheers. And Cheers had one of the most iconic endings in television history when Diane came back and everyone thought Sam was leaving again to be with her. But he came back to the bar, and he fixes Coach's old picture that's hanging up on the wall in the bar, and he leaves out the way he came in the very first episode, and it just ended perfectly. You don't get those type of finales anymore. So check out that Dave, Lil Dicky. You won't be disappointed. So the news week of the story, which I thought had to be one of the crazy. I won't say it's crazy. It sounds just like this guy, but I wonder how no one saw this and how he got into the NFL. So Jamarcus Russell had to be bribed with 10 junior bacon cheeseburgers to watch film. Okay, that title alone says that this man never wanted to play football. All right, so we all know that Jamarcus Russell was obviously a bust after being drafted in 2007 by the Raiders. But, his biggest issue was his work ethic. And, nobody on the Raiders seemed to find out about this until they selected him. But don't feel bad, Raiders, because when you picked him out of LSU, we didn't know this either. This didn't just start when he got to the Raiders. Believe you me, there are certain things that don't start, once you reach a certain level. That is a habit that has been with him. But, Russell, we all know Jamarcus Russell wasn't a fan of watching film. We all know from the viral story of coaches giving him blank cassettes, blank DVDs to see if he was actually watching them. And we found out he was not, and he lied about watching them when he was asked. So it only got worse when one of his ex-teammates told the story, having to stop by Wendy's to get him cheeseburgers to bribe him into watching film. So they said that normally the way the Raiders did it was they would get Monday and Tuesdays off. Quarterbacks didn't have Tuesdays off. They will be at the facilities watching film. So they said Jamarcus Russell, for some reason, didn't come in on Tuesdays like he wasn't a QB. He didn't come in. He was at home. So the other QBs, the other two QBs, would bring the film to his house with 10 junior bacon cheeseburgers. And he would open the door up because they had the bacon cheeseburgers. And they would sit there, and they said he had like this 100-inch screen television, which was, in 07, that would be crazy insane. And they said they would be in his bedroom, and he would be on his bed eating the sandwiches, watching the film on this giant TV. That was the only way they can get him to watch film. I mean, it gets worse and worse and worse for Jamarcus Russell. I mean, yeah, I mean, it is bad. I mean, if you told me in order to get a guy to watch film, I would have to bring him 10 bacon cheeseburgers from Wendy's, this is how I would have felt. Oh, man, Jamarcus Russell, one of the biggest busts of all time. He got paid. He got his money. But I wonder what he's doing today. I wonder if he's going out today and buying himself 10 more junior bacon cheeseburgers from Wendy's. Oh, wow. All right, and the stat line of the day, all sports leagues, because no one's playing, so everyone got a big, fat zero. Let's tell them how we feel about that. Yeah, that's how we feel. Sorry, leagues. NASCAR might get the first applause if they really do come back this month. Can't wait. So, look, that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for taking time out of your day to include my podcast into your day. Okay? Now, if you're listening to the restream of this podcast on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe, and, like, comment on the podcast, all that good stuff. New podcasts will air every Wednesday and Saturday on Spotify, so please feel free to share the podcast on any of your social media outlets that you use. You've been listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis, and remember, it's your world. I just give my opinion. I'm out. Peace. Have a good Saturday. Woohoo!
You're listening to All Things Sports with Mike Davis.